Welcome to Gone Phishing, a show diving into the cybersecurity threats that surround our highly connected lives. Every human is different. Every person has unique vulnerabilities that expose them to potentially successful social engineering. On this show, we'll discuss human vulnerability and how it relates to unique individuals. I'm Connor Swalm, CEO of FinSecurity, and welcome to Gone Phishing. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Gone Phishing. I'm your host, Connor, CEO at Fin, and I am joined for the first time on our 100th episode, the CTO and co-founder of Fin, Josh, who also moonlights as one of my best friends. Josh, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. A little nervous. I think the fact that I haven't been here in 100 episodes, I think, I belong in the dungeon a little bit. I vibe with the dungeon, but I'll come out for 100. You'll see me at the 100th and the 200th. It's like a Pugsatawny Phil situation.
We'll just start cutting episodes down to 1 minute so we can, like, every month, we're just getting you into another episode.
I mean, I had a thought that, maybe I should have a celebrity shot. I come and ask Connor a really hard question every time. I assume our interviewers are like softball and everything to you, or you're softball into them. Someone's got to ask a hard question. So maybe I just come in, I celebrity surprise guest every single time.
You celebrity shot the really hard question.
But Connor, how are sales today? I was just come in with the real hard ones.
I would be more open to that than I think anyone on the planet would believe. It's like, things I say privately, I'm willing to say it right to everyone else's face too. So, for folks who have no idea who you are, how would you describe yourself? Just tell us a tiny bit more about Josh.
I have a beard. I would start there. I didn't notice until just now, but now that I'm on camera, but apparently it's been going for about 2 years or so. I'm the CTO, run the engineering team as best I can, I guess is one way to put it. Prior, I worked for a couple of years at a giant bank and realized I did not want to do that for the rest of my life. I worked at a small startup of 6 where I got some chops in what it means to fail pretty hard. And then at some point, there's a sort of nebulous gas of good ideas. And I hung around Connor enough that we were like, hey, we should really take one of these to the next level. And I think a star was born at some point. It wasn't me or Connor, but something not quite in the middle of both of us. And haven't really looked back. So I don't know. It's been 3. I stopped counting, so I don't know. I say 3 until I feel like it's been too long. I don't think it's been quite 4, but it's been quite a while.
It's, the official incorporation month is December of 2020, but I was living in my parents' basement and you were borrowing money from your mom to pay the mortgage probably until like September, October of 21.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have, I'm sure, calendar invites for much before that date as well.
Yeah.
I don't know that we were really friends before. We were acquaintances, and I feel like we hung out for a while and we skipped the "are we friends" part. We're just like friends right away, we're like, oh, I guess we're just best friends now. Are we best friends? It was like a stepbrother situation. It was
down, yeah, minus the weird shit that happened before they became best friends. But it was like we were the chosen few of a mentor of ours in college that we happened to have in common. It's like, you're one of the guys. I'm one of the guys. We should be doing stuff together, huh? And then I don't remember this exactly happening, but I do remember being in a computer lab way late at night, one of the Friday night, or it's like poke your head up above the sea of computers. It's like it's just me and you in here. You want to do some stuff together? It's like I just remember that being the sentiment. It's like nobody else is trying to do this. We might as well spin our wheels together, if nothing else. I was like, I'm down. I'm ready to stop being so alone. Stop doing this on my own.
One of the conditions of me being on the podcast today was that I was getting to interview Connor. So you did ask me about me and my background a little bit. That's all you get. They didn't let you pre-screen the questions, I assume.
No, I got them 5 minutes before I hopped on.
All right, we got a couple heaters, a couple chaotic questions, and a lot of philosophy. So I think there's a couple of softballs. I'll give you some breaks, but we'll start with just the easiest one, the icebreaker. Connor, what are your thoughts on free will?
My thoughts on free will. So for those of you in the audience, not a part of what is now a huge inside joke, One of my favorite authors is a biologist by the name of Robert Sapolsky. He created a book called Behave, which analyzes how people's biology and their upbringing impacts their biology, which impacts their behavior. And his second book that he released handfuls of months ago, like 6 months, is called Determined. And it's actually in my backpack because I take it everywhere. It's basically, does free will really exist? If biology does determine how your brain develops and as a result determines your behavior, how could there possibly be an argument for free will? And so my statement, what do you think of free will? It is only an illusion that we believe it exists, but that's okay. Like, that's okay. It's like, I remember you and I had debates early on. Is like, is the existence of a thing matter, or does the perception that it exists mean more? It's like, all right, well, let's look at this through the lens of like the modern world. If people perceive inequality, nobody cares if it does or does not exist. It's like that. Those people care so much that they perceive it exists. All right, we should fix the inequality that now exists, like, because the perception of it exists. So let's fix the perception by fixing the inequality.
An attention problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I view free will at this point. It's like, it probably doesn't. I don't think it exists really, but doesn't matter. It's useful to believe it does.
You and I had so many debates where that was pretty close to my answer and that wasn't your answer for just like a really long time. So when I discovered that Connor's favorite author was coming out with a book, is I was going to let Connor's favorite author talk about my point of view to him. I feel like we're much closer to the center now. I've given a little bit. Actions matter still somehow in the soup of physics is really complicated, but seems to determine a lot of things. But I'm happy. I think we've come to some sort of harmony on that, and it's taken literally years.
Literally, it took actually one book, which took years to get here. But
it probably took him years to write it. Yeah,
I hope so. The amount of references that man makes and the size of the appendix that I've had to read is unconscionable.
Like half the book. Yeah,
yeah. It's like 300 out of the 1,000 pages is an appendix that exists after the book that you've read. It's like, right. Well, I have to read the appendix before I finish the book. But it's there's something to go along with that. I forget. I'll talk.
That's good because I got a lot more questions. This one's really interesting. Which one of us do you think is the good cop, and which one's the bad cop?
I would say you're more of the bad cop, if I'm being honest.
Upon reflecting, I think I came to the same answer, but that surprises me. I feel like I'm smiling more often. You're telling more jokes.
I'm definitely the narrative guy, right?
The narrative guy, yeah.
I'm definitely the narrative guy. And you're like I don't care what you tell me. Show me information to let me arrive at my own conclusions, please. And
Connor needs that in his life, to be clear. So I'm happy to provide that service for you, Connor. You're welcome.
I mean, I do that to an extent. One early thing we debated on was not cult of personality, but what is it? Social selling. Another word for social selling.
I think social selling is a pretty good way to put it.
It's like, oh, of course we should go do this thing because these other people that we really value their opinions. Social proof. Yeah. And you're like, I could not care less about that than I do right now. And I guess I buy into that a tiny bit more.
I don't know if it's bad cop so much as like chief inquisitor sometimes, which
you're just intense.
That's just intense. People, I don't know. But my identity is not one of an intense person, but if more than one person tells you you're intense, you got to watch out then.
Yeah.
All right. This one I thought was interesting. Have you ever been in panic mode? There's a bit of a caveat of specifically with this business. Like, have you ever been in panic mode? Like, oh, how are we going to come out the other side of this thing? The caveat with, I think you experience fear and panic differently than I do. Yeah. So have you ever been in panic mode like I have? I don't think so. But from what is panic mode to Connor, and have you ever been in it?
There was one exact moment. You're going to laugh at this so much that as it turns, before I even say what the moment is, it turns out it didn't exist. The scenario in my head didn't exist. In reality, it never would have.
Yeah.
And it was when I filed, what was that? It was franchise tax.
Yeah.
And we get this notice in the mail. It's like, you owe $240,000. And it's like, our bank account was like $6,000. I was just like, I have just screwed the entire company and I'm going to die. And I just remember freaking out for like 30 minutes talking to you, like running downstairs. For those of you who don't know, I lived in the house Josh is at with Josh. It's Josh's house. And I ran downstairs. I was like, I don't know what to do. It's like, we're done. It's like, we're just close shop. We're done. And this was like before we had employees too. It's like, no, we had Kurt.
There was just three of us in the house.
There's three of us in the house. Yeah. And then I like Googled is this tax bill real? And the number one answer was, it's not. You're not alone. You just went through what thousands of other entrepreneurs have gone through at some point in their life. I was like, oh my God. It's like, all right, what's my actual tax burden here? And it was like $400. I was like, whew.
It was like a classification. Yeah, a classification problem. I remember you sweating over that. So that was maybe your closest to real panic.
That was real panic. That was real panic.
That was it. What's closer, but close but no cigar, as far as like what has been like high stressor moments?
High stressor moments. The first conference I ever went to, putting on my credit card with 2 days notice because I didn't want to go. And
somebody pushed you to do it. I don't remember who at the time. Somebody had a beard, if I remember.
So this is the whole story for the folks in the gallery. Two of our best friends at this point, Wes Spencer and Michael Riggs, were early, I want to say, the confidants of ours. This is before they ended up being investors and advisors of our company. And before they were some of our best friends. We called them up on a Friday just because we were having regular conversations about the MSP industry with them. And Wes makes the statement at like 4:30 p.m. on a Friday. He's like, hey, the biggest industry event of the year in this industry for security is on Monday. You should be here. I was just like,
you like wrote it.
Look at the time. I gotta go. I got other stuff to do. And like Wes's answer was, what is more important than selling? And then Josh was like, great point, Wes. Connor will be there. Don't worry. And I like booked a hotel for like $60 a night on my credit card. I got a red eye out there Monday morning, ended up staying. And I left that conference with my iPhone note because I was just a vendor in disguise with an iPhone note filled with like 50 people, 50 different conversations we had, several of which are now partners today. We didn't win them all at that time, but we've won a lot of them at this point. And it was Wes and several other now investors at that conference watching me do that, even though it was really uncomfortable and exhausting. They had decided to give us what ended up being close to $1 million for our first round of funding because they watched me do that. Because you said, it was, Connor, I'm removing your ability. You're no longer writing code anyways. Your developer credentials are turned into dust. Go to this conference. And so I did.
That was definitely a formative moment. Something about like we weren't quite sure how to grow. And we heard from the friends that had been growing. It's like conferences are where you're going to grow early. I was like, I don't really know what that means. And there's like, there's one coming up. You should go. We we're like, oh, maybe. And kind of like, oh, I don't know. It's like, nah, it'll probably be. And then it was very transformative. So because of that one, we went to, how many have we gone to total now? Do you know?
Close to 50. Close to 50 for sure.
How many of you attended personally?
I did 26 of them last year.
Oh my gosh.
So
that's brutal.
26 of them on my own last year, yeah. Well, not on my own, but I attended.
Where you were at least in attendance?
Yeah.
All right, I got another question for you. I hear a lot from you about how this is hard. Well, from us, this is hard. Building companies hard. I think that's a more common narrative. It's just like, this is hard. This is really hard. Something you commonly... Maybe I can try to spitball. Like, I'm going to tell you, don't do it. The people that do it anyway, that's like the filter right there. Yeah. Something like that. It's really hard. My question, though, is the inverse. What has been, if anything, what has been easier than you expected? Because all of this is just a thing we thought it was, and some things are easier, some things are harder, some things are as expected. A lot of things are in the harder camp. Is there anything you can point to that's kind of in the easier camp, or like maybe plays to your and I's skills so that it became easier for us?
I would say the easiest part about all this has been doubling down every time. What I mean by that, like, I remember, I don't know if it was the person we work with who does some brand coordination for us. It was somebody who was like, oh, this story is really great. Like, what was your plan B? And I was like, What do you mean? Yeah, what were you going to do if this didn't work out? I was like, what do you mean by that? And they're like, well, what was your backup? Did you have anything else that you thought about doing if this wasn't going to work? Did you start doing anything else? I was like, actually, now that you mention it, it's like this is the first time I've ever thought about a plan B in the last several years. And no, I didn't have anything, and there was no option but for this to work. It was either 0 or 100. There was no in between. So, looking back, that would have been really wise. And it is only through direct ignorance and hubris that I did not have one. It's not because I planned it. It's like I literally just never even thought about it. So I'd say what has been easy is like at every turn, every day, something comes up. Most days are, pretty even keeled. And then there are some days, most of which about because we talk about them all the time, where it's like, wow, this was hard. I'm exhausted. This sucks. The problem that we identified today is not going to be solved for several months. And it's all of my problem to solve for the next several months too. And if we don't figure it out, it's going to suck for everyone. It's like, so that's like really hard. But the easy part has been continually being like, well, what are we going to do about it? I got to give it my best try. It's like quitting is continuing to commit is not the issue.
The risk aversion. Yeah.
It might just be, pattern matching at this point. It's like, I'm so used to committing and doing it anyway. That's like, well, it'd be scarier to not commit to this. So let's just keep going.
That's fair. I also think in particular, like hanging out with people, being a people person for you is like just been super easy. Like that first conference, I'm sure would have broke a lot of people, but you stayed up all night, hung out with everyone you could. I feel like that skill set of yours, maybe you just had a lot of practice in college or whatever, but that skill set, I view that as the thing that's gone way easier for you than I've seen for basically anybody we talk to is like, how do I get started? I'm like, sucks that I have to suggest this. You need to go talk to people. It's like our next step is you talking to 25 people about this first stage that you're in. And then it's like, okay, what have you done? They say all these things. I'm like, have you talked to even one? Like, all right, next goal, we're going to go down from 25 to 10. Like, all right, how many? Like, not even one. I'm like, I need just go talk to people. Connor's like, we land in town for a conference. I'm like, all right, where do you guys want to get? We're like, well, where'd Connor go? And he's just over talking to some people already. Just you cannot keep a hold of him. He's hanging out with his folks just all the time. I think that's something that definitely some sort of superpower in there. Just like hanging out with people is a strong suit that's really good for the business, but also something that is definitely a strong suit of yours.
It's definitely not something I'm afraid of. It is something that becomes exhausting, like just by nature of late nights, early days at conferences. But also there is a bit of like I really enjoy my time, like at night when we're all playing video games and we're on Discord. It's like I'm alone, I'm by myself, I'm doing my thing, I'm vegging out. It's like I really need that. You don't get any of that socializing. So, but I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to start doing it, and it just gets tiring at some points.
Fair enough. I'm not sure how much total time we have, but I have a handful more questions.
Oh, we can keep this going as long as possible.
Yeah, it's true. They can just hard cut it at the end for the recording, right? We can just talk for the rest of the day, actually. Yeah.
100 episode part 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, fair enough. Weirdest brainstorming idea that we had that like paid off. It was one question, which is kind of it's a hard one, but I've got some thoughts. What do you got?
Let me read the exact question here. It's weirdest brainstorming we've ever had that actually turned out to be successful. I want to say it was the life jackets.
I was going to say the life. Such an afterthought is what we're just like, we're leaving for the airport. It's like, grab those. I don't know. It became an identity piece for so long.
We still, for those of you who don't know, we wore bright purple life jackets that Josh and his girlfriend have for kayaking.
They smell like the creek too.
They do. They smell pretty bad. And we decided to wear them to get attention at our first conference ever, which that's probably a whole other set of questions. Not the first one I went to. The first one we went to as a company sponsored it. And it just went off with a hit, like went off without a hit. People loved it. Like in a sea of people dressed in business cash, it's like we stood out like a sore thumb, and it was amazing. And also wearing your pineapple swim trunks didn't hurt at the same time. And we got so many questions at the next conference that I believe we wore it like one or two other times. and it became like a thing. Like, you got to go see what's up with those Fin guys. They're
like, where's the life jackets, guys?
Yeah. We had kids bring their life jackets to the booth because their parents would bring them to the conference, and they're like, I wanted to match the Fin guys. And I'm like, oh my goodness, we've started something. That was cool. Because I remember talking with Wes and Aaron and thinking and asking them, it's like, it looks, everyone I've talked to and met, you have created a cult of people who have fallen in love with the brand and the people and the company you have. So please teach me how to create a company that does that. And their advice summed up in a single sentence is, do the weirdest, funnest things you can think of and don't look back. I was like, I could do that. I could be weird and fun.
Fair enough. I think our shirts, to some extent, were like a bit of a wacky, like, maybe we should try this.
Like this
we ended up leaning way into, like some of the stuff, which just, that started as like we need shirts with our logo on them. And then someone was like, can we be a little fun with it? And we're like, all right, maybe for this one. And then it's like our whole identity now. It's like the snowball has rolled so far.
Yeah, it's definitely fun when people send me LinkedIn DMs of like, my marketing team hates you guys because of how good your shirts are. How do you do it? It's like, we didn't have an adult in the room that told us no.
Our childlike curiosity and wonder. Yeah, that's how we did it.
Yeah, we just did it.
Next one. Who's going to play you in the movie adaptation of the Fin story?
Who's going to play?
There's two parts. One is like alive and well today, and one is like any actor from any time period.
Who's going to play me? See, well, the movie adaptation is either going to be one of two things: an incredible comedy, or like. So I'm going to give you two answers: an incredible comedy, or something super serious like the Social Network, the Facebook story. Right? I want to say, in the comedy, I want to be like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson or Bruce Willis, somebody who's bald. I don't know why I have that in my head. I make jokes about my hairline all the time, so it has to be somebody bald, right? Who's obviously not me. I want to say, in the serious adaptation, I want to go with like skinny Jonah Hill.
I was gonna say Jonah Hill. I forgot that he went through like a really skinny arc. I think that would,
yeah. Good. I want to say skinny Jonah Hill. I'm not a very skinny individual, but I'm definitely not large. Skinny Jonah Hill.
So good. That's insane, though. He got to the same spot. Jonah Hill would be perfect. I do appreciate the desire for the comedy to have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson rather than the opposite of those two. The comedy actor Jonah Hill in the serious adaptation. It's drama work.
It's like getting Daniel Radcliffe to play who's Frodo? What's his name?
The Frodo guy, Elijah Wood. There we go.
Elijah. Yeah, it's like make a movie where Elijah Wood and Daniel Craig are in it, but have them play each other.
You mean Daniel Radcliffe?
Daniel Radcliffe, sorry, yeah. So Daniel Radcliffe plays Elijah Wood plays Daniel Radcliffe, and it would be the funniest dynamic ever.
See. That's fair. I think for me, what I really want, I know it doesn't really match the aesthetic or the appearance, but Mummy, the first Mummy movie, Brendan Fraser, that would be perfect. I think a close second, as far as the intensity and the attitude goes, I would love Robert Downey Jr. I'd be honored to have Robert Downey Jr. Yeah, like the Iron Man era, the snarky Stark, I think is what I'm looking for in the adaptation.
I was thinking, let me Google his name. I was thinking Jesse Eisenberg, like actual like Zuckerberg from the Social Network. I feel like that was a great played character.
Those guys are facial hair challenged for sure, but I think we can make it work.
They got prosthetics these days, right?
For the movies, they're spending millions on this. They can figure that out.
Yeah.
All right. I got one final question I'm really looking to hear the answer to is, what do you take the most pride in when it comes to Fin?
What do I take the most pride in? This is a hard one. Yeah. I'm pondering for those of you who just watching. Sorry for the awkwardly long silence.
It's your time.
Some variation. I'm trying to get the right words. It's like we did it our way so far, right up until now. You know, future Connor may say a different thing. It's like a lot of the gravitas, if that's the right word, a lot of the appeal for not only a lot of the employees here, but a lot of the wonderful people that have bet their livelihoods on the fact that you and I got up in the morning, largely, it's like, we did it our way. So what are we going to do? And then we insert our list of principles. We're always going to tell the truth, even if it offends you. We're always willing to talk about it and change our minds. We're always going to do what we believe is right, even when it's hard. And then also when you throw in the wacky dose of like, we have these weird t-shirts, not because we made that decision intentionally. It's like, that'd be cool. That'd be fun. There are just so many different, we've done it our way. It's like, we've made all the decisions that we want to make to build the company we want to make. And it's like, I view it like the great experiment. Like America's called the great experiment, like 200 and some odd years in democracy. I view us as the great experiment. It's like, who knows if a company with this kind of culture, with these kind of employees, and the attitudes that we have here today and the way we make decisions is going to work. I'm willing to bet it will. I'm willing to double down every single day that it will. And we haven't compromised on that. So I take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah. I feel like there's been a lot of pressure to be more normal. And some of that, like, I think there's two sides of that. One, like the off normalness is just being more goofy and creative and stuff. The other side is like, we're way more principled, or we're not like, this is what other companies do, so we should do it. We're often like, I don't think that, like, I kind of want to just be honest about that thing or whatever. It's like, I'd rather go through the trials of seeing what it's like to be honest for those things, or all the pressures to be normal, to start to align, to be like a real business. I feel like we've done that as far as like strategy, marketing, sales and stuff. But as far as like the cultural bits, I feel like we've been able to keep all that. And we've had other people remark to us that they are surprised that it's been working, and we're like a little bit of a light, a person in particular who will not be named, but they're glad that there's a pathway to get at least here, and we're doubling down that we're going to be able to get farther on that. So yeah, I think that's good. I think the other thing for me, trying to articulate it, basically at the last startup, we failed, but I became 10 times the person that I was when I started in like less than 2 years. And I knew that what I wanted to do here was give other people that chance. And we've already done it. And we're already doing, people that come in, just, it's never what they expect. But a lot of them are hitting like that 10x stride of just like, they're going to be able to do basically whatever they want for the rest of their lives. Like the careers are fully open. They want to be a founder. They've got the chops and the connections. If they want to be like the director or executive of that function, they're getting the chops here. It's like nowhere else can you just like get sucked into the wind tunnel and come out the other side just completely transformed. I think I'm most proud because that was always my dream, is to provide that to more people. And so far it's working spectacularly. Always different in every single case than I thought for those people. It's because they just learn and grow through the process, but they end up just warriors out the other side, or, whatever they want to be if it's not a warrior. But I think that's my point of pride, is like letting people get to where they want to go, like facilitate that. And I think we're hitting it 10 out of 10 so far.
Yeah, it's like I've heard founders make, and even I've made the statement several times. It's like, if I knew how hard this was going to be at the beginning, I probably never would have started. I think a lot of early employees at startups make the exact same decision, whether they know it or not. Because this, like what I've seen is people who have not been in a startup before, is like, there's this local minima of, I'm stressed, there's so much anxiety, we're not getting anything done. And then they just blast off into the sunset, and they're like, this is what progress feels like. These are meaningful. This is what meaningful production really is. And I have an impact that I can physically see with my own two eyes on the people we decided to serve. I don't know. It's
beautiful. I'm ready to leave it there. I'm worried about talking ourselves off of the high note with some sillier questions. So
we could do a whole nother episode of sillier questions. We could do that.
Yeah, sure. All
right. Well, I'll sign us off. Josh, thanks for being here. I mean, I talk to you every day, but thanks for being on the podcast. It was a blast chatting with you. And folks, thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. And one thing I forgot, there will be links to connect with Josh and I in the show notes, both of us on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out and say, I don't know, good things, bad things, everything in between. Just say something if you want. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much for tuning in to Gone Phishing. If you want to find out more about high-quality security awareness training campaigns, how to launch them in ways that actually engage employees to change their habits, then check us out, FinSecurity, at finsec.io. That's PHINSEC.io. Or click all of the wonderful links in our show notes. Thanks for fishing with me today, and we'll see you next time.